What's the most unexpected out of the blue thing your partner has ever done during sex? My first time with her, I had known her for all of 2 days. She tried to finger my butthole, bit my D rather hard, and said to me, as we were having sex, "Pretend like you love me," and I just want to pretend like someone cares about me. Absolutely none of those things were turn-ons. Was once having sex with my so doggy style, and in front of us was a mirror. I waved at her through the mirror and she laughed so hard that she pissed all over my D in the bed. Holy crap. Looks like I'm getting a second golden shower. Thanks guys. My husband spread my ass cheeks and got face real close to my butthole and just screamed. Like screamed as loud as he could. It was so violating for a second and then I died laughing. Thanks for the gold. One of my favorite sex moves was actually discovered by my girlfriend's improvisation. We were having regular missionary position 6 when she decided to wedge my rubber ducky between our hips so it would give off a muffled squeak with every thrust. I've been doing it ever since. Though we don't do it as much these days because it completely crushes and deforms the poor duckies after doing it a few dozen times. She came really hard as I did too. Her V clenched really hard. That felt like heaven. Which then pushed my D out and she sharted. XGF. She was riding me, and when I was about to come, she knew it. She started choking me, riding me faster, and then slapped me in the face. After it was done, she asked me if I liked it. I did not. He was on top of me and we were experimenting with blindfolding. He ties a pillowcase over his eyes and is looking around. I can only see shapes, he says, and suddenly he rips the loudest fart I've ever heard while he was sitting on my stomach. This was in the beginning of our relationship, so we hadn't really gotten into the farting around each other phase. I laughed so hard that we couldn't continue. The mood was gone. It was foreplay before sex. Throwaway because she knows my username. But weirdest thing has got to be her waking up on penetration, which she initiated. I knew she sleepwalks and talks. Apparently she ducks too. She woke up confused, on top of me, worked out what was going on, shrugged and just continued. This has happened more than once, although I've gotten better at noticing when she's asleep in the dark and waking her up first. It's not a regular thing. Maybe 4 times in a 7-year relationship? Definitely weird. Although not as funny as when I woke up in the middle of the night to see her waiting for the lift in front of the sliding wardrobe. See compulsory RIP inbox. Not replying to everyone individually, but yes, she has spoke to a therapist and her sleepwalking has almost completely stopped. I won't say completely as it's one of those things that can come back, I think. But she's fine for now. Unlike a lot of replies, she's pretty stupid when asleep. As in can't work out a doorknob, let alone drive a car. That being said, see above. No, she didn't cry rape. Ever. She knew she sleepwalked before we started dating, so she kinda just went with it. Guess I'm lucky though. P. No babies were made in the process of this story, thankfully. She slapped my ass and said, "Whose pussy is this?" It was our first time and I wasn't sure if it was hers or mine, so I ignored her. She did it again, but this time she pinched my nipples and screamed, "Answer me." Having a 50/50 chance I said it was my pussy. Afterwards she says, "That's right. It's your pussy. Don't forget it." 7 years later, it's still my pussy. Lol. Thanks, kind giver of a golden pussy award. Old FWB liked to dirty talk, so do I. But in one of our sessions, he kept referring to his D as his pepperoni. "You want a taste of this pepperoni?" No, I don't. Dried me up like the Sahara Desert. My wife usually waits until we're near the end and then starts asking, "Are you feeling it now, ma?" Crabs. She didn't tell me she was recovering from surgery for endometriosis. We turned on the lights after we had finished and there was blood everywhere. Ends up I had blown a hole through her, resulting in a trip to the ER. I can think of several better ways to meet her entire family for the first time. They just kept staring at me. They knew what I had done. A lot of folks asked for a tifu. I made one. Mods didn't like it and remove it. I moved it here for those that are interested. Accidental ass penetration when he got overexcited and pulled out too far while doggy styling. My scream. clench and bolt forward was just as unexpected for him too. We were having a very heavy makeout session before bed. Not unusual and usually led into much more playful, naughty, sexy things. Provided we didn't draw out the making out. We'd been going at it for a few minutes and things were starting to get just a little bit more heated. And shifting around. etc. Then he just stops. Nothing. Figure maybe he had to catch his breath or I'd shifted and cut off his circulation or something. I wait a minute. Try and kiss him again. No response. I say his name and poke him. No response. Then I realize his breathing pattern has shifted. He's fallen asleep in the middle of making out. At that point I say screw it and go to sleep as well. The next morning, he didn't remember a thing. The first time I ended up in bed with an old duck buddy, he asked me to don a pair of boxing gloves and punch him across the face and chest. This in itself wasn't really unexpected as we'd already talked about how that kind of thing turned him on. The unexpected part was how much I got off on it. I discovered a new kink that night. I once dated a guy who giggled when he finished. That was definitely unexpected the first time we had sex. I yelled PIVAHT when I turned her over for doggy style. She then proceeded to laugh so hard she fell off the bed. No more sex. Edit. Holy it, someone popped my Reddit gold cherry. Thanks mate. I threw a party at my place first semester of college. Girl and I got drunk and ducked all night. She had to get up the next morning to do sorority stuff. 6 AM sits on my face and yells eat my pussy. We'd been dating for a year and a half. She just broke down crying. And it wasn't just a few tears, but a full-blown crying. I held her tight telling her if everything was alright, but she still cried for the next 10 minutes. This was during fairly vanilla sex and we've done a lot rougher BDSM stuff before, so it was confusing. I asked her if she forgot her safe word. No. Did I hurt you? No. What made you cry? I don't know. It's a mystery to this day and she can't figure it out either. My girlfriend is a talker, however. At one point, mid-gasping orgasm, I always assumed I'd have a wide variety of sexual partners, but if this is what you do then I don't see it as a high priority. It was like having sex with an auctioneer. On behalf of my he made a noise when lifting me and my immediate response was to put on my best gruff voice and rot out with Mike Wazowski, you haven't filed your paperwork. How he continued is beyond me. It's not what the girl I was with did, but I had ended up at the girl's house, both very drunk, and started hooking up. For some reason, that soon became very clear. There was a mattress on the floor of her bedroom, so we ended up on it. About 10 minutes later, drunk me is balls deep doing doggy and just looking around the room when I realized there were two very quiet, yet very awake and attentive people in the bed, watching us. Somehow I wasn't able to finish. Made my excuses and left. Edit. Sorry guys. I'm British, so fell asleep and just woke up. I think she was illegally subletting a mattress in the room. The whole house and area was sketchy as duck, so wouldn't be surprised. Back in 2001, my girlfriend had apparently seen the Cripple Fight episode of South Park and started saying filthy things during sex in Jimmy Varma's voice. That stopped me cold, but she would not stop doing the voice. Pretty funny. Edit. She's no longer my girlfriend. We broke up 14 years ago. I was riding on top of my partner and before he was gonna come he wanted to pull out, so when he finally came I rolled off and he accidentally busted his nut on his forehead. I immediately bursted out into laughter and he shouted out and I ducking lost it. Midway through, without a condom, she said, "Wow, this feels amazing." And I shouted because it is bloody raw, like Gordon Ramsay. Needless to say, we were both laughing too hard to continue. He said, in Nigel Thornberry's voice, "Oh, Alushka, I'm arriving." It was so awkward, but I couldn't stop laughing. I was trying to be all sexy and hold her from behind. Apparently, I held too hard around her neck and choked her a bit. She asked me if I was doing it on purpose. I started apologizing, saying I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. "Are you okay?" She said. It really turned her on. And that's the story of how I discovered my ex's choking fetish by complete accident. He kept pushing my head further down his D until I gagged. He really liked being deep-throated, I guess. As a blowjob newbie, I did not appreciate this at all. Well, it was something that I did. Was having sex with my girlfriend and I had an extreme head cold. I kept saying the wrong thing all day and sneezing and all that gross it. But during sex she kept talking about how good my D feels. That dirty talk kind of stuff. I got close to her ear and just said in the most absolute serious tone, "I love your D." She just stopped and looked at me and started bursting out laughing, almost crying from how funny and serious I sounded. I sat there in disappointment of myself. She just kept saying D, so the word D came out of my mouth instead of vajayjay. Not proud of myself. TL. Doctor told my girlfriend I love her D. Edit. My first majorly upvoted comment, thanks Reddit. And PS, I did laugh along with her. I was just dying inside as well. But it's all good now. My ex had apparently read in Cosmo that guys like to have their assholes finger blasted. So, one night, she's giving me a blowjob and decided to give me the ol' sneaky finger. I lurched forward and accidentally shoved my D down her throat. She puked. Then I puked. We never spoke of it again. Had a girlfriend once who pulled away from my D after giving me head, looked directly into my eyes, swallowed, and said "Go team." My girlfriend was blowing me and decided to stick a finger in my butt. That was a first for me. I liked it. Try it guys. Tain't bad at all. I jokingly said something along the lines of "This is Captain Johnson for the US Thundercock. Permission to dock." To my ex. She responded with "Permission granted." Without missing a beat. Duck, I wish it worked out. Edit. My top comment is now about how my ex was totally down for an improved space D'ing comment. Nice. XGF, that was a rather talented violinist. Riding me gently and reaches over, grabs her violin and starts to play as she comes. Impressive. And strangely erotic. I had a guy pour a bottle of water over me during sex because it's getting too hot. I wasn't impressed because it was my bed that got soaked. But the sex was hot, so I continued and later slept in the puddle. My boyfriend was eating me out when out of nowhere he blew a ton of air into my V and it scared me. I jumped and pushed all the air out, misting the poor guy's face. I laughed so hard at him. Though I'm not proud to say that I know what a balloon feels like now. She fell asleep. We were absolutely hammered and had both been up for about 22 hours at that point. So it's understandable. But to have her just go unresponsive while I'm inside her didn't exactly help my ego. Was having sex with a French guy, on his heaviest, thickest French accent. He said, "I will now put my D in your V." I laughed and it both got us off the mood. I swear I'm not making this up. Met a girl off Craigslist. She was nervous about the whole thing and went as far as to give me a fake name. When I showed up to her place I was worried I might be getting conned and would get robbed. But she was real. After about 2 minutes of talking we were making out, and shortly after we started ducking. In the middle of me ducking her, she said between moans, "I can't believe I'm ducking a stranger." Hottest thing a girl has said to me, and it completely caught me off guard. She asked me if I liked that, then called me a ducking retard. Weird. This was me, not him. But my boyfriend used to tell me that I wasn't loud enough. He couldn't tell when I came, so he didn't know when to stop. So the next time I came I yelled announcement, "I have orgasmed. Please step aside and allow the doors to close." He was on top and then he suddenly stopped. He didn't move for like 30 seconds and I was like, "What's wrong?" and he wouldn't tell me. Then he said, "Sorry, buffering." My then fiance called me directly after work one night, completely hammered after visiting a friend that lived a few floods down from us, and waiting with a Hitachi wand for me to get home. I hurried my ass back to the apartment and found her ready for action. She claws off all my clothes and starts to ride me like it's the Kentucky Derby. We finish at the same time, which is always amazing, but she kept coming and coming hard. She arched back and flopped straight forward, luckily right beside my head. She came so hard she passed out. After few minutes had passed, she woke up, climbed off of me, and wandered into the kitchen for some water. Keep in mind, she's very drunk, like blackout drunk. She decides she's suddenly tired after her drink. So she climbs up and lays down on a partial wall we had separating the living room and kitchen. Naked. I kept an eye on her for a little while, then went to get something out of the bedroom. I hear a loud thud and a whimpered owl. There she was on the floor. She must have landed pretty gracefully because she just ended up with a little bruise on her hip from the fall. I help her up, apologizing, but suddenly, she doesn't care about fall she just took. No. Now she has to check the mail in the lobby of the big apartment complex. Naked. I convince her that this is a terrible idea. But now, she's not interested in the mail. She's interested in the mail. It's round 2. She starts making out with me, dragging me back down the hall to the bedroom, pushes me on the bed, and starts to ride me again. She comes again like crazy. She did the arch back again, but this time, she hung there while I held her up. A few seconds of silence tick by, when she lets out a rattling snore. She passed out from an orgasm, again, and that's the night my daughter was conceived. This isn't something my partner did to me, but rather something that happened to me. My girlfriend and I were having sex after taking a shower together. I had water stuck in my ear the entire time, which was annoying, but then again what can you do? Then, as soon as I came my ear popped and I was able to hear again. It was one of the most amazing and bizarre combination of sensations I have ever experienced. So this wasn't me, obviously, but I heard it going down. My roommate and his GF were the type who would always make noise while they were going at it and I was, obviously, never the type to complain. I just put on my headphones, turn on Spotify and play some games for a while because awkward conversation would probably kill me both literally and figuratively. One time however, I took my headphones off to go and get something to eat. They're still going at it. Then he makes a single, really loud moo, like a cow. Everything stops. I can hear her ask what the duck, like any sensible person would, and he immediately stops laughing. Long story short, she left and they didn't speak for about a week. He spanked me. He missed the fatty part of the cheek so it was more like a punch in the hip bone. He's practiced. Now it's fun. This will probably get buried but here goes. I was the one who did something unexpected. Girlfriend and I were having sex after a short break where we saw other people. She let me tie her up for the first time. We had recently seen a movie, I think a Woody Allen movie, where a character tries bondage and, as she tells it, the guy tied her up defecated on my chest and left. So once I get her tied to the bed I smile and say don't worry, I won't defecate on your chest. Girlfriend, looking puzzled and worried, says is that something I should be concerned about? Turns out I had seen that movie with a different girl. She gave birth. I didn't mean for this comment to explode. I just thought it would be an amusing comment to write. No big story. Folks, sorry, it is common to have sex to help induce labor. And my wife and I did that, but she didn't give birth during sex. When my girlfriend came she screamed Hercules Mulligan and slapped me. This is something I did. I was near blackout drunk. She was on top. I started to feel drowsy and closed my eyes for a second. Then I think she thought I was getting really into it and that I was about to come so she started riding harder. This is the point where the motion sickness kicked in. I threw up all over her and myself. Did not come either FS. Had a girl pull off real quick and start slapping my D. I must have been giving her some kind of a look, because she asked if I liked it. I said no and she seemed a little offended. She got back on but the moment had passed for me. Nothing major, but I wanted to make a sex tape for us to watch. At the end, he apparently gave a thumbs up and okay sign. Weirdo. The tape has been destroyed. We don't do sex tapes well. Me and my friend with benefits were having sex when her brother walks in, grabs her Xbox controller and Minecraft, then left without even looking at us in the bed. Deep throated a hot pocket that hadn't even had time to cool down. One time my ex-GF was riding me and she started talking in Korean. When I looked up I realized she was discussing getting tickets for her home for Christmas. They didn't call her. She called them in the middle of riding me. I'm surprised they couldn't tell what she was doing. She seemed to be enjoying it too much. Met a girl online that decided to come and visit for a week. She had told me she was a squirter, which I had never seen live before. Well, the first 3 days we ducked about 18 times. Every position imaginable. I was literally pulling knee cartilage out of my cock at this point. At absolutely no time did she squirt. I had forgotten all about her even saying that she could, to be honest. So I come home from work one night and start ducking her on my dining room table. Well, she starts moaning really loud. Suddenly her pussy has this vice grip on my cock. Then it pushes my cock completely out of her along with this gush of spray that can only be compared to a lawn sprinkler. Meanwhile she keeps rubbing her pussy and gets like 3 more sprays out before just laying there numb. I swear to God it was everywhere. I had a dripping of my hair all over my face and body and her face and body. And I had about 3 or 4 puddles on my tablecloth. I stood there in shock for about 30 seconds. By that time she had caught her breath and said, "Told you I was a squirter." I was so hard I ducked her about 4 more times that night. It was by far one of the hottest things I've ever witnessed. Started making jokes about old Greg. While having sex she looks up at me and says in the voice of old Greg, "Do you love me, Howard?" I died of laughter. At the beginning of our relationship, my boyfriend and I were having sex one afternoon. We had been going for a while and the mood was pretty strong and we were both feeling relatively invincible. So he asked if he could try something. What he wanted to do was a pillar driver. I had sort of forgotten what this was. So him pushing up my torso and attempted to shove his D down into me was absolutely hilarious and I start cracking up instantly, not realizing he was 100% serious about this. He was reasonably upset and I felt sort of bad. Not really during sex, but with a new girl I started dating. She hadn't had sex in a while. Apparently for some unknown reason. I completely knocked her menstrual cycle clock off. It's stayed in that new clock since then. But we both kinda WTF'd. But moved on since it was obvious she wasn't pregnant. Came about 10